I think what people will be seeing over the summer is that Susan Lee demanded that Parliament come back. She said there was legislation ready to go on these issues, and then it was a complete bun fight there over the last 2 days.
Yeah, because we were ready to come back. We were ready to talk in a very, very bipartisan manner, work through these things, work through on the Siegel report what we can do there, work through on the terms of the Royal Commission what we can do there and the enabling legislation. There were things that could have been done easily. But instead of calling us back with some time to do this and starting that process, Prime Minister called us back with a bill that was not going to be split and not going to be changed. It ended up being both of those things in a rushed and, I think, horrible way.
And you guys were demanding Parliament come back. You weren't prepared either.
Absolutely. No. We were absolutely prepared to do the enabling legislation on a Royal Commission. We're absolutely having conversations on ways we could implement the Siegel report.
But not on hate speech.
In a better way. No, this hate speech thing was on these 2 days getting this clarity, because that's what it was for us. I'm sure there'll be questions on that. But the process should have been better. It shouldn't have been. Remember, these are the laws. There is no change.
Your own party rooms?
No, within Labor. This was not to be split and not to be changed until it was.
In the end, Ross.
And then we're playing catch up over 3 days.
Why did you cross the floor?
Okay, on the end of the 3 days. Because we didn't believe, as a party and myself individually, that there was enough certainty around the protections for the groups we weren't trying to target. So his butt to here and stuff like this, and neo-Nazis had to go get them. I had to kick 18 people who were associated with the group out of the National Party when I was State Director. Had to hunt them down, find them, get them out. They have no place in tolerance when they are celebrating violence and advocating violence. But we had concerns. If you go to section 195N of the Victorian legislation that was linked to this legislation, you can have severe ridicule as a bar that is set for this. If you go through my social media posts, any MPs...
The Prime Minister has just dismissed that as if it was to be legally challenged. And look, the Prime Minister isn't the complete authority on this. I accept that. But what groups in particular are you concerned about?
Well, we don't know. This is the thing. Our concerns were, and we put forward, four amendments that would have satisfied us. If we have a sunsetting law after 3 years, that we could actually see how it has gone.
But
did
what
we
groups
move the bar
in particular,
up to
though, because
violence?
this is also on the recommendation of the Director General of ASIO as well. I mean, he's not going to recommend that the Batuta advocate, for example, is caught under these hate speech laws for ridicule. Come on, that's not serious, is it, Ross?
Well, he's not. No. He's not today, but no one is saying Batuta advocate. I don't.
I know, but if you're talking about ridicule, that's the best example that we can come up with. I mean, do you really think that's going to happen?
But no, we thought it was possible it could happen.
Okay.
And laws that impinge on free speech shouldn't make it possible. This is our thing.
How would you have tightened that to make sure that couldn't happen, but you could still ban these groups? If you're concerned about that, what is your answer to it?
Our answer was to take it back to actually physical violence, because we're talking about psychological harms and things like that in the thing. We wanted it linked to cheering on terrorism or physical violence. There was one amendment that we said that where it had to be linked to supporting, advocating or celebrating terrorism.
But that would be too broad to capture Hizb ut-Tahrir, wouldn't it?
No, it would not have been. I think you saw people like Mr. Pizzuto came out and said these were the things that he was fighting for to change. And man, he was out there talking about these things. We consulted with a lot of people and we talked to some judges, and some judges were comfortable with where it was and what it was. But we're seeing activism judges. We're seeing these things that would like to move the bar. This was our concern, is where we are right now as a snapshot. This was close. Let's not pretend it's not. We weren't absolutely this is horrible. But what happens in 12 months' time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, if we continue this activism, if we continue moving the bar, where does this end up?
Okay, fair enough. But in the end, you know the rules. You've crossed the floor. Will you stand down?
If I am still a member of the Shadow Cabinet next week, it is because of the understanding, the tolerance and the leadership of Susan Lee. I understand if you do the crime, you have to take the time. And if it is so requested, I will be stepping down from Shadow Cabinet.
Okay, but you won't go of your own volition. You say that there should be an exemption for you. Why?
No, I'm not saying there's an exemption at all.
No,
Literally,
but why should you
there are conversations.
Why should you have an exemption here? These are the rules. If you go against cabinet
100%.
solidarity, the obligation is that you step down. But you say you're not going to. You're tempting Susan Lee to sack you.
Not at all. If it is, there are conversations taking place. I think I've walked away from things going on because there was a do not rush this conversation that took place earlier, and I stand willing to take my responsibilities, seek with convention, and resign if that is the case.
Okay, but that is the convention. But you don't seem like you're intending to resign.
Oh, you might be surprised what's going on in the background, but I
give us an idea, Ross.
That I have to take the time.
Make me not guess here. What is going on in the background? Are you just hoping Susan Lee will give you an exemption here? Do you want to stay on in this portfolio?
I would love to stay on in this portfolio,
okay.
but
you knew by crossing the floor there was a risk that you couldn't.
100%. 100%.
So you won't resign, but if Susan Lee sacks you, you accept that.
I am willing to resign. I have prepared to resign. There is a conversation taking place that is not at my level, that is seeing what goes on from that at the moment.
Okay, so your future and the future of your fellows that cross the floor, that conversation is going on between whom? David Littleproud and Susan Lee as to whether you can remain. Is that your understanding?
I think there's a leadership group that I'm not part of.
Right. But what would your argument be for staying right where you are?
I have no argument. I won't be bitter if that is the case. I understand that is what goes on. Our party room. Some things in Parliament are important, Laura, and this was important to me and it was important to my room. And I'm not going to pretend I need an exemption. I'm not going to pretend anything like that. I was so vexed by this that when my flight was delayed on Sunday, I couldn't make shadow cabinet. I put a submission in writing via a WhatsApp group just to try and have a say. I have gone through the process as best I can. I've made the decisions. I'm not putting anything on social media saying, look how brave I am, I voted against this. This was done solemnly and for the right reasons, and I will wear the consequences of that, as I should, as more politicians should in this place, is stand up and take your pain when you do the wrong thing. And if I have done that, I will go without a question. I will support the coalition. I will support Susan Lee, because what we need to do is take more individual responsibility for what we actually do, not what we'll say we'll do. And too many people on all sides of politics, every person, sit there and say, this is what I stand for, but when pressed, they don't. And if your principles become hobbies under pressure, or transactable under pressure, they are just hobbies. And too many people down here are like that.